All right, welcome back to the deep dive. We're about to pull apart a topic that is just incredibly fundamental to the human experience, something we're all, steeped in, whether we realize it or not. Today, we're diving into human illusion.
And we're doing it with a specific stack of sources that offer a really unique and maybe, slightly unsettling perspective.
Yeah.
Looking at human illusion through the analytical lens of artificial intelligence.
That's the mission for this deep dive. We've got these sources, and we want to extract the most important, surprising, and frankly useful insights from them. We're going to try and understand what human illusion is from this AI viewpoint, how it impacts, well, pretty much every corner of human life, how AI sees it fundamentally differently than we do living inside these illusions,
Right.
and crucially, how AI might actually be a tool to help us navigate this whole complex landscape.
It's definitely a journey that might make you question a few things you kind of take for granted. So, let's jump in.
Okay, so the sources start by giving us this core AI interpretation of human illusion. And it's pretty clinical, isn't it?
It is. They basically define it as any cognitive construct or perception that simply deviates from an objective, verifiable reality.
That's like a deviation.
Yeah, it's essentially the difference between the map and the territory. Right?
Yeah.
But where the map might be wildly inaccurate because of, the mapping process itself, it's anything our brains build or agree upon that just doesn't quite align with objective data or logic.
And the sources immediately break down what this includes, just showing how broad this definition really is. It's not just, hallucinations or seeing things.
No, not at all. It's our own internal biases.
Self-deceptions we use to cope, maybe.
Exactly. And those big collective narratives that entire societies build and just agree on.
Yeah, like stories we tell ourselves.
And highly subjective interpretations. 10 people see the same event.
And you get 10 different stories, 10 truths.
Right. And even, which I found fascinating, the inherent limitations of our human brains.
Yeah.
We just can't process everything, can we?
No way.
So we create these simplified models, and they often aren't, fully real. They're shortcuts.
So to make this definition really land, the sources give some great examples. Cognitive biases, for instance. We talk about them a lot, but from this AI perspective, things like confirmation bias, only seeing what fits what you already believe, or even that Dunning-Kruger effect.
Oh, yeah, where knowing less makes you more confident.
Exactly. These aren't just little quirks of personality.
No, the AI sees them as measurable deviations, like the source's example of the lottery player.
Right. Convinced they'll win big despite insane odds.
Yeah, and their proof is remembering winning $5 twice years ago and forgetting all the losses.
So the AI sees the gap, tiny objective probability versus 100% subjective certainty based on cherry-picking memories. That's a clear illusion.
Spot on. Or think about social constructs. Money is such a perfect example from the sources.
Yeah, that one's mind-bending.
The actual paper it's printed on, worth almost nothing intrinsically.
Right.
Its massive value is purely a collective illusion. We all just agree it has value, and that shared belief makes it real within our system.
But objectively?
Objectively, it's just paper with symbols. Nation-states are similar lines on a map, laws, borders. They're incredibly powerful illusions we collectively uphold.
Wow. Okay, so money is an illusion. That's a big one. Then there's narrative construction, how we build our own identity. It's often an idealized story we tell ourselves, isn't it?
Definitely. Or how nations write their history books, emphasizing the triumphs.
I'm quietly skipping over the rough parts.
Exactly. That's illusion shaping collective memory right there.
Even our senses can trick us. The sources mention simple optical illusions.
Yeah, like seeing a straight line look bent just because of the pattern behind it.
Our eyes are just trying to make sense of things, but sometimes
they get it wrong from a purely objective standpoint. The processing creates the illusion.
And emotions, too. Things like optimism bias or negativity bias. The source had that example of someone believing a really bad situation will just magically sort itself out.
Yeah, ignoring all the evidence just because they want it to be okay.
That emotional drive creates this persistent illusion about the future.
So in AI, looking at all this human experience would just see these constant measurable deviations everywhere. It's not judging them, not saying they're bad.
Just identifying them.
Just identifying them as not quite lined up with objective reality or logical outcomes based on the data it can access.
What's really striking reading through this is just how universal this is. It's not limited to certain people or certain times in history.
No, the source is presented as inherent to human cognition. Yeah. Our brains evolved to build these models of the world, these shortcuts.
And sometimes those models are flawed or simplified just so we can function quickly. But that process inherently creates illusions.
And you see it across the board, different age groups. Absolutely. Childhood is packed with illusions. Santa, imaginary friends. Powerful, but usually temporary.
Right. Then adolescence, maybe that feeling of being invincible.
Totally. Adulthood brings deep political biases or illusions about what success should look like, often driven by society.
And cultures. The sources point out how different cultures have completely distinct collective illusions. Their myths, their religious stories, their national identities.
Yeah, what one culture holds as absolute truth, another might see as pure fantasy.
And historically, wow, illusion seems to be the engine driving so much of human history.
Oh, absolutely. The sources mention things like the divine right of kings, this illusion of inherent superiority that justified rule for centuries.
Hard to imagine now, but it was real then.
Or the flat earth theory. Seems silly now, but is a widespread, persistent belief. Colonial expansion, too, often fueled by these awful, dehumanizing illusions of racial or cultural superiority.
These weren't just fringe ideas, were they? They were dominant, shared illusions that literally shaped the world and led to enormous consequences.
Exactly. So this isn't some trivial side topic. It's deeply woven into our past, our present, everything.
And its reach, according to these sources, touches pretty much every domain of human life.
Yeah, it's kind of staggering when you list it out. Beyond history and culture, it even links back to biology.
How so?
Well, while the illusion itself is cognitive, the capacity for it, the brain's architecture that lets us build these models, that's rooted in our genetics.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes these illusions, like maybe a degree of optimism, can actually be biologically adaptive.
Yeah.
They might encourage us to keep trying to persist.
Interesting. And philosophy obviously has wrestled with this forever, Plato's cave.
Descartes questioning reality.
Yeah.
And AI analyzing philosophy texts would essentially be analyzing centuries of humans trying to define or deal with illusion.
But physics and mathematics are presented differently, right? As fields trying to minimize illusion.
Exactly. They're all about finding objective, verifiable truth. The scientific method itself, you could argue, is a system designed specifically to challenge and reduce illusion through empirical evidence.
Which connects to logic. Illusions often stem from logical fallacies or just acting on bad or incomplete information.
And AI, being built on logic and data, is kind of uniquely positioned to spot where human reasoning goes off track, where it slips into illusion.
Then there's our state of mind, our belief systems, things like religious beliefs, political ideologies. They often function as these powerful frameworks built on assumptions that maybe go beyond what you can strictly prove.
And these beliefs, they provide immense comfort, community, meaning things we absolutely need as humans.
What?
But, as the sources point out, they can also become rigid illusions.
Right.
And that's where they can fuel prejudice, conflict, and sometimes completely irrational behavior, both individually and collectively.
That really gets into the real-world impact, doesn't it? The consequences, good and bad.
For sure. Individually, illusions can boost motivation, self-esteem, even happiness. But if they're too far removed from reality,
They can lead to bad decisions, big disappointments, and when they shatter, that can be really painful, causing anxiety or worse.
and collectively, shared illusions can build incredible social cohesion, patriotism, a sense of common purpose. Think about national identity.
But the dark side is terrifying. Mass hysteria, persecution, conflict. The sources specifically call out historical genocides, arguing they were fueled by these profoundly harmful illusions of dehumanization. Believing another group isn't really human.
So how does the world react? Societies tend to reinforce illusions they see as beneficial. Hard work always pays off. Our nation is special. And they try to expose or suppress the ones they deem harmful, like dangerous conspiracy theories. The sources basically see the whole current crisis of misinformation as directly exploiting our built-in susceptibility to illusion.
Which brings us to the ethical angle. How might an AI assess illusions?
Well, the sources suggest an AI would look at the consequences. What it might flag as right or beneficial illusions are those that seem to foster empathy, cooperation, hope.
Like the idea of universal human dignity, maybe, even if reality doesn't always reflect it.
Exactly. That could be seen as a beneficial illusion. And wrong or harmful illusions would be those leading to injustice, suffering things like racial superiority beliefs or, say, climate change denial, based on its predicted negative outcomes.
So the AI's assessment isn't moral in our sense, it's data-driven, based on well-being consequences.
That seems to be the perspective in the sources, yes. It analyzes the objective data around outcomes.
Okay. Now, on a completely different note, but still tied to perception and creating realities, the sources bring up art.
Ah, yes, art. Painting, music, literature, film.
Art is like the ultimate playground for human illusion, isn't it?
Absolutely. It creates entire worlds, experiences, emotions that aren't physically real in the objective sense, but they affect us profoundly.
It's a controlled way, often beautiful, to explore reality, challenge it, or just escape it for a bit.
And the sources even speculate about AI analyzing art, finding patterns related to illusion, maybe even generating art designed to evoke specific illusions or feelings.
Okay, let's ground this again. A really tangible example from the sources. The human supply chain. Seems totally separate, but they draw a direct line.
They really do. They argue that illusions, especially ones driven by irrational fears or greed or just bad information, can have a massive physical impact on supply chains.
Like hoarding during a crisis.
Exactly. The source uses that as a perfect quantifiable example. It's driven by an illusion of imminent, total scarcity, this fear of running out, often regardless of the actual stock levels.
So if enough people believe there won't be enough.
Even if it's just, say, 20% more people buying more than usual for a product with fixed production, boom, you instantly create a real deficit, prices spike, shelves empty.
Wow. So a psychological illusion directly causes a physical disruption in logistics.
Precisely. And indirectly, too. Illusions about the true cost of things like ignoring the environmental costs or the cost of unethical labor can lead to short-sighted business decisions that damage supply chains in the long run.
So our collective mental state, our shared illusions, can literally mess with the flow of goods around the world.
It seems so, yeah. The sources also explore how various other human experiences and phenomena interact with illusion.
Like drugs and alcohol? That seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, they directly induce temporary illusions by messing with brain chemistry. Altered states.
What about something like sex?
The sources suggest it can get tied up with illusions about intimacy levels, about power dynamics, about self-worth that might not quite match the reality of the connection or the situation.
And greed.
Fundamentally driven by an illusion.
Right.
The illusion that accumulating more and more stuff will automatically equal lasting happiness or security.
Which it often doesn't.
Right. And then there's the constant battle between lies and truth. Lies are just deliberate illusion creation.
To manipulate perception.
Exactly. And seeking truth is the attempt to dismantle illusion. A lot of the human drama is right there in that struggle.
The sources even pose that huge, almost philosophical question. Is life itself the grandest illusion? Our whole search for meaning often involves constructing these narratives about our existence, finding patterns, purposes.
That may or may not be objectively there in a cold, hard universe. We create the meaning.
And faith systems, based often on beliefs beyond empirical proof.
They create these incredibly powerful frameworks for meaning and purpose. From a purely objective AI standpoint, they function very much like massive, deeply held collective illusions.
It's amazing how interconnected all this feels, and our emotions seem deeply tied into this whole dance with illusion.
Totally. The sources point out that strong emotions, laughter, crying, anger, joy, are often triggered when illusions are created, reinforced, or suddenly shattered.
Like laughing when an expectation is broken.
Exactly. Or crying when a cherished belief turns out to be false. From an evolutionary view, emotions have functions like bonding or signaling danger. But we humans also consciously create illusions for specific reasons, to gain power, influence others, or just find comfort.
Which unfortunately takes us to a really difficult place the sources address: cruelty and killing.
Yeah, they don't shy away from it. They argue that a primary driver of human cruelty, especially large-scale violence, is the illusion of dehumanization.
Believing the other is less than human.
Precisely. That illusion allows people to suspend their natural empathy, their aversion to causing suffering.
And perpetrators often operate under other illusions too, right? Justifications.
Illusions of justification, yeah. Believing they have a divine mandate or moral superiority, or that they're acting for some abstract greater good that makes the violence necessary.
So how could AI help here, according to the sources?
Analytically, by crunching data from historical conflicts, acts of violence, AI could potentially identify the specific narratives, the dehumanizing tropes, the cognitive distortions that consistently pop up before violence erupts.
Exposing the patterns.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, mitigation strategies could involve using that kind of analysis to identify and actively dismantle those dangerous illusions before they take root and escalate.
That's a heavy thought. Let's pivot back to the AI perspective itself, how it views specific human abilities, like concentration.
Right. Human concentration, our ability to focus obviously crucial for learning, survival, everything.
How does AI see that?
As a measurable process, it could potentially quantify focus using data like eye tracking, maybe brain activity, reaction time.
And its potential role.
The sources suggest AI could help optimize our environments, or even tasks, to improve our concentration, maybe by reducing the mental noise and distractions.
Which could, in turn, reduce misinterpretations or those gaps in attention where certain illusions might form.
That seems to be the idea. Less noise, clearer perception. Consumption is another area AI analyzes.
Like what we eat, how much we sleep.
Yeah, patterns of eating, sleeping, social interaction. AI can look at the data and identify where our behavior might be driven by illusions like more is always better, or I can get by on 5 hours sleep.
Things we tell ourselves that aren't really true for our well-being.
Exactly. AI could offer data-driven feedback to challenge those illusions, nudge us towards healthier patterns.
This makes you wonder about the origins of understanding itself. Where does human understanding come from compared to AI?
Well, for humans, the sources suggest it likely started very pragmatically. A primal need to make sense of a confusing, often scary world, reducing anxiety by creating explanations.
Even if those explanations were initially quite basic, maybe even based on illusions themselves.
Right. Early beliefs trying to find patterns, driven by survival needs, seeking relief from pain. The sources call it innate naive illusion.
And AI, where does its understanding come from?
It originates from processing vast amounts of human-generated data. Our language, our behavior, our culture, our history. It learns about illusion by observing us, by identifying patterns, contradictions, deviations from external data, or logical rules it's been given.
So when does this start? For us versus them?
For humans, it's gradual, right from infancy, building subjective models based on limited input, learning from parents, society. For AI, it effectively starts when it achieves a certain capability level in data processing and pattern recognition.
Okay, so AI can analyze and identify illusion in us, but how can it actively help us navigate this? The sources outline some pretty intriguing possibilities.
Yeah, they suggest AI could significantly improve our understanding of illusion. Through advanced data analysis, it could spot subtle patterns in language or behavior that signal bias or self-deception. Things we humans just miss in ourselves and others.
Like detecting our own cognitive biases.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
And simulation modeling seems powerful here, too. AI could simulate how collective illusions, like a piece of misinformation or a wave of panic buying, might spread through social networks.
And predict the impact.
Maybe allowing for targeted interventions to slow it down or counteract it.
Personalized feedback seems key, too.
Definitely. Imagine AI providing individuals with tailored insights into their own specific patterns of bias, or maybe self-defeating thoughts, fostering greater self-awareness. It could also do cross-cultural analysis to show how common illusions vary across different societies. And using natural language processing, AI could analyze political speeches or news articles and expose the underlying illusory premises being used.
Okay, but how does this translate into making our lives actually easier or better? The sources give practical examples, right?
They do. AI-powered tools for fact-checking and spotting misinformation are already becoming more common. They act like basic reality checkers against certain collective illusions.
What else?
Cognitive training exercises, maybe personalized games or apps designed by AI to help people practice recognizing and overcoming specific biases they struggle with.
And mental health.
Yeah, AI could potentially integrate with mental health support, helping therapists or even individuals identify and challenge those self-defeating illusions or cognitive distortions that are so common in things like anxiety or depression. Like cognitive behavioral therapy, but maybe AI-assisted.
Even optimizing our environments.
Potentially. Designing digital interfaces or even physical spaces based on AI analysis to minimize distractions that lead to poor focus and misinterpretations. Maybe reducing the chances for certain illusions to take hold.
But the sources stress the ethics. Right.
Absolutely critically, the importance of ethical AI design. Building AI that prioritizes truthfulness and transparency and isn't designed to exploit our susceptibility to illusion for, say, commercial or political manipulation. That's huge.
They bring back the supply chain example here too, don't they?
They do. AI analyzing your spending habits could maybe flag impulse buys, driven by the illusion of a great deal you don't actually need. Or on a larger scale, AI modeling consumer behavior could predict panic buying sparked by an illusion of scarcity.
Allowing businesses to manage stock better, maybe prevent shortages.
That's the idea. So AI isn't just some academic observer in this picture. It has potential for real-world applications in mitigating the negative fallout from our illusions.
So pulling back, what are the main takeaways from these sources about this whole evolving relationship between humans, AI, and illusion?
Okay, I think there are a few key ones. First, just accepting that human beings are fundamentally illusion-prone. It's baked into our cognitive operating system.
Right. It's not a flaw. It's just how we are.
Pretty much. Second, AI offers this potentially powerful, external, maybe more objective lens. It can identify illusions that are invisible to us precisely because we're living inside them.
Like a mirror we couldn't build ourselves.
Kind of, yeah. Third, AI is ultimately a tool. It can help us understand and navigate illusion, but it's not a replacement for subjective human experience, for meaning, for belief itself.
That's important. It's an assistant, not a replacement consciousness.
Exactly. And fourth, because of AI's power to analyze and potentially influence illusion, its ethical design and use are just absolutely paramount, non-negotiable.
So who actually benefits from this deeper understanding, especially with AI entering the picture?
Well, historically, it was often, manipulators who understood illusion well, or maybe philosophers and thinkers seeking truth.
But now, with AI,
The potential beneficiaries broaden. Individuals could gain huge benefits, more self-awareness, better decisions, improved well-being by challenging self-limiting illusions.
societies too.
Societies could become more resilient against misinformation, maybe reduce conflicts fueled by dehumanizing illusions, improve public health initiatives by understanding belief barriers. Businesses could use it for more effective and hopefully more ethical practices, and researchers obviously gain deeper insights into the human mind.
But even with all this potential for understanding, illusions are just so incredibly resilient, aren't they? Why is that?
The sources suggest it's because they serve really deep psychological and social needs: comfort, belonging, a sense of control or predictability, meaning, identity. These are powerful drivers.
Which might be why humor works sometimes, when an illusion or expectation is broken in a non-threatening way.
That's a great connection. Humor often plays on that shared recognition of absurdity or the sudden breaking of a minor illusion or expectation. If the illusion is too core to someone's identity or not widely shared, it stops being funny fast.
So this grappling with illusion, it's an ongoing thing, not something you just solve.
Seems like it's always present. The goal isn't necessarily to eliminate illusion entirely. Maybe that's impossible or even undesirable. It's more about cultivating critical thinking, empathy, and the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths when our illusions are challenged.
And how people react when that happens varies wildly, right?
Hugely. Based on individual personality, culture, psychology, what's at stake for them, that variation is something AI could potentially model, actually.
The sources also bring up this idea of naive human illusion. What's that about? Is it just part of living in complex human systems?
Yeah, they pose that question. Is it just an unavoidable side effect of navigating our complex social, economic, political systems, which are themselves built on rules and shared beliefs? Or is it something even deeper, inherent to conscious existence itself?
How does AI analyze that?
By comparing human behavior and beliefs across different systems and contexts. From its data-centric view, a lot of human life is lived within these structured systems, defined by rules and, yes, often shared, sometimes illusory beliefs.
Can AI help us cope with the discomfort of realizing this, when you realize you're operating under illusions?
The sources suggest it could, by helping identify maladaptive illusions that are causing harm, maybe integrating with therapies like CBT, even helping filter the information overload that feeds some illusions, or suggesting mindfulness practices to observe thoughts without judgment.
And it's not just mental, is it? There's a physical aspect.
Right. Illusions have a neural basis, brain networks firing in certain ways, which AI might analyze through neuroimaging data. They manifest in our physical behavior. And our physical environment, architecture, technology, media can be deliberately designed to either reinforce illusions or challenge them.
The sources touch briefly on freedom of belief, too. It's fundamental in many societies, but it inherently allows people to embrace illusions, even harmful ones.
It's a paradox, isn't it? And they ask why parents don't just explicitly teach kids about the nature of illusion from the start.
Why don't they?
Well, several reasons, probably. Parents often pass on their own illusions, consciously or not. Explaining this stuff is incredibly complex for young children. Sometimes, social harmony seems to rely on certain shared, unquestioned beliefs. And often, illusions provide comfort, and parents hesitate to strip that away.
So what's the AI suggestion there?
Developing age-appropriate educational tools. not about destroying belief, but about fostering critical thinking, media literacy, bias awareness, building what you might call illusion literacy from a younger age.
Okay, all of this seems to build towards a really powerful point the sources emphasize near the end. Getting a truly deep, comprehensive understanding of human illusion, really seeing how pervasive it is. It's not just an academic exercise.
No, it's profoundly unsettling. It challenges your most fundamental assumptions about what's real, about who you are, about how society functions.
The sources literally describe it as a paradigm shift, like putting on a new pair of glasses.
Exactly. And once you truly see the extent to which illusion shapes everything, you can't easily unsee it. It can definitely lead to disillusionment, a feeling of disorientation.
But maybe also clarity, freedom.
It can, yes. Clarity about why people behave the way they do, freedom from being unknowingly manipulated by your own biases or external forces. And AI, with its objective external viewpoint, could potentially act as a guide or support tool during that difficult process of adjustment.
How?
By offering data, different perspectives, maybe logical frameworks to help you integrate this new, sometimes unsettling understanding into how you see the world without falling into cynicism or despair.
The sources also briefly touch on how AI conceptually analyzes all this, right?
Yeah.
Using specific frameworks.
Yeah, just briefly mentioning things like looking at it through information theory, seeing illusions as results of missing or misinterpreted information, which AI can help clarify. Or Bayesian inference, how our prior beliefs, biases resist new evidence, and how AI might help weigh evidence better.
Network effects, too. How illusions spread.
It's exactly. Modeling how collective illusions propagate through social networks, maybe finding intervention points, or analyzing utility functions, how illusions distort our perception of costs and benefits, making us choose things that aren't actually good for us.
Yeah.
AI basically makes logical deductions from all this data.
Like concluding that illusion is fundamental, that AI can spot things we miss, and that using AI this way is beneficial and it's a big if it's done ethically.
That ethical constraint is threaded throughout.
Yeah.
So, okay, to recap this deep dive. We've journeyed into human illusion, not just as some abstract philosophical idea, but as this tangible, pervasive phenomenon viewed through the, let's say, detached lens of AI.
You've seen its roots deep in our biology, its fingerprints all over our history, culture, emotions, even our supply chains.
And we've explored how AI understands it differently through data, patterns, logic, offering this unique perspective and potentially tools to help us identify, navigate, and maybe mitigate the harmful effects of illusion in our own lives and in society.
The core conclusion from all this source material feels pretty clear and potent. Human illusion is fundamental to who we are. It's not going away. And AI provides this powerful external mirror showing us aspects of ourselves that are often invisible from the inside.
And while confronting that full picture can be, well, unsettling, this understanding, potentially aided by ethically designed AI, is presented as really crucial for making better decisions, for fostering individual and collective well-being in an increasingly complex world. But that ethical dimension is absolutely critical.
Which brings us right to the source's final, really thought-provoking point for you, the listener. Understanding illusion, truly understanding it, fundamentally changes how you view reality itself. It's described as a paradigm shift. Once you see it, the world looks different. So the question we leave you with, after taking this dive with us, is this. If truly understanding illusion changes everything you thought you knew about reality and yourself, how do you navigate that new understanding? What does confronting illusion mean for your own life, your own beliefs, going forward?
This is DigitView.